Hello, how are y'all? Doing good, I hope. I'm having a lazy day today, and I took my shower and I'm getting ready to do all my face care routine, so I thought I'd talk about my dad's family. My dad was born and raised here in Max Meadows, Virginia. When he was a child, they lived down at the river. The house they had, of course, did not have an indoor bathroom, running water, nothing at all like that. And I think it's about 2 miles to get from where their house was to the main road, which is Major Graham's. And then it's another few miles from there to where my dad went to school. And they literally did have to walk, rain or shine. There was no, waiting to watch the TV to see if school was closed. That shit didn't happen in the 40s. And then when my dad was 18, he and his oldest sister's husband at the time built the house that I used to live in, which is 2.5 telephone poles away from the house I currently live in. They built it from the ground up. Basement, first floor, second floor, electrical, everything. They built that house 100%. Took them 2 years to do it. So it was finished in 1960. But as my dad was growing up, he took care of his youngest sister, Violet. My grandparents had a working farm, and there was things to do from sunup to sundown, and there would be times that things just needed to be done and no one would be there to watch my Aunt Violet except for my daddy. I mean, he would do anything and everything for her. He almost raised her. But she has always been quite self-centered and selfish as an adult. I don't know how. He spoiled her, and he treated her like a princess, and I think that gave her the idea that she was more important than she was. This is all conjecture. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I can't diagnose anything like that. But that's just the way it seems to me, that she grew up being pampered and spoiled all the time, so that kind of carried over into her adulthood, and made her quite self-centered. I don't remember much about her as a child until we actually moved to Virginia in 78. When we moved up here, my parents contracted our house to be built, and since Dad was still in the Navy, my mom, me, and my brother lived with my grandparents until our house was done. My mother worked for my grandmother at her restaurant up at Fort Chiswell. And, things weren't great, but they were pretty decent. So, it wasn't that bad. On one of my mom's times coming down here to check on the progress of the house, she was stepping over a mud puddle and her heel caught the edge of the mud puddle and she fell and broke her ankle. Now, Mom was supposed to go to work, but of course her ankle was pretty well fucked. She didn't want to drive on it, so she called my aunt to come and take her to the hospital. And my aunt was like, well, why don't you, put some ice on it, put it up, and see how it is after a little while, and if it's not any better, then I'll come and take you. And my mom did that, and hours later, it wasn't any better. It was getting much worse, so she called my aunt to come and take her to the hospital, and my aunt's like, well, I'm just too busy. You can just drive yourself. It's no big deal. And this was my mom's, I believe it was her left foot, and we had a manual drive car. So she would have had to use her broken foot ankle to keep pushing in the clutch. And that's real. I mean, my mom had to drive herself to the hospital, which is about 20 miles away, and get everything done at the hospital, get a cast on her ankle, and drive herself home. And that was kind of the start of it between those two. They had issues after that, not surprisingly. But my aunt has always, if there's really nothing in it for her, then she'll do the bare minimum most of the times, but that'd be about it. She really is not a person that gives you the warm, fuzzy feeling. Now, when my dad fell and broke his neck, became a quadriplegic, I'm the one that found him. And after finding him, of course, I called everybody that I needed to. And that, of course, included my Aunt Violet. And she didn't even bother coming to the hospital to find out what was going on, which, if this is my brother that had raised me and taken care of me most of my life, my ass would have been out the door as soon as I heard that phone call's reason. And I would have been there waiting for the news and, be there for a plan of action. Now, she didn't even come see him for the first few days. She was too busy or had her own health issues, which really it's chronic problems, but they're really not extremely debilitating. So she could have made the trips to see him, whether it be up in town or later in Salem after he was heloed over. But she didn't even do any of that. After his fall, of course, I called all the family, and they immediately all came out. My brother, his wife, my kids, and they all were out there for, I don't know, between 5 to 7 days, I think. And, by that time we knew what was going on, what needed to be done, how things were likely going to go. We had everything hashed out and a plan of action. And as I've said before, I stayed by Dad's side throughout his entire ordeal. And this is in spite of the fact that I do have debilitating chronic back pain. At the time of Dad's fall, I had already had 2 major back surgeries to put metal in my back. My neck was fucking up all the time. I was in pain 24/7. But I didn't care because I wasn't going to leave Dad alone. So while he was in Salem, it's only about an hour drive, and my husband was working as an intern in a pharmacy. So he couldn't come and get me a lot. So I stayed there and took care of Dad. I had clothes and my meds and everything, and I only went home once a week. And it was like pulling teeth to get her to even come up and stay with him for 24 hours so I could go home to get clothes, get my meds, pay bills, take care of everything that I needed to for him and for me. She refused to do much. Now, Dad was at Salem for 3 weeks. After that, he went to a skilled nursing facility in Lynchburg, which is about 150 miles away from where we live. So when that transition was made, I, of course, made the transition with him. But it became even more imperative that I get on somewhat of a regular schedule of what day to come home and have my aunt come up there to be with him, because she wouldn't come up for more than one day. And it would only be at her convenience if she didn't have anything else she wanted to get done that day. So if I had appointments or something, I had to schedule them around her schedule, just so I could make sure Dad was taken care of. So she would come up there. Her husband would bring her up, and then I would come back with my uncle, and he would drop me off at home, and I would do everything I needed to do. I don't understand why, if my dad meant so much to her, like she always said, why she would not be more active in helping care for him. It boggled my mind. I remain grateful for the fact that she did come up and give me that one day off a month, or a week, sorry. That one day a week that she did come up and take care of him while I went home. I am eternally grateful for that, because I had to get my meds refilled. I had to get laundry done and repack clothes and do everything I needed to do. But her selfishness during that time was just very astounding to me. And it's not like she had a job that she was having to go to, because she didn't. She had nothing going on that could not be put off. I was in college full time, and Dad would not let me put that off. So I continued to be a full-time college student while taking care of Dad, along with my medical issues and doctor's appointments and everything. During that time frame, I'm not sure if Dad did, but I kind of expected our friends and family to maybe step up a little more. But that didn't happen. And I get it. Everybody has lives. Everybody has, they have jobs. They have things they've got to do. But during all his time in the hospital and nursing facilities and rehab places, Dad didn't even get visitors, really. There were maybe 3 times he got visits from somebody other than family. Maybe. When all hell breaks loose, you really find who has your back. And I had Dad's back, but nobody had mine. Not even my husband. It really was one of the worst times of my entire life. But with regards to my aunt, she did not go out of her way to help Dad or make things easier for him or I. When the end of September came and we brought Dad home, she did the same thing. She came down one day to give me a break and refused to do things that Dad needed at the times they were needed. And it was one of the only times I had ever seen my dad really truly angry, and he told her to just get the fuck out and never come back. And to hear my dad say something like that is really, really unusual, because Daddy did not get angry at all. He was always very level-headed, and to hear him be that angry was really shocking. So, to hear him say that to her because of the way she was acting was gut-wrenching, really. And then he died. And for any of y'all that know me, my family is 1000% the only thing I care about. Not the only thing, but they are the most important thing in my life. My kids, grandkids, my aunts, my cousins, my brother and all of his family. I mean, I will do anything and everything for my family. I will sacrifice every ounce of my energy for my family. So after Dad died, I kind of put everything that I felt about my aunt in that little box that I keep way deep down, and I stuffed it in there and ignored it all, because I just lost one family member that was the most important to me, and I didn't want to lose any more family. So I continually just put it down and just went on with things with her, and forged a fairly close relationship. Her own daughter has cut her out of her life, so I wouldn't take her place, but I did become a lot closer to her because she didn't have anybody else either. So it was important to keep that relationship. And I would talk to her every day, mostly every day. Sometimes, usually, I'd go a couple days in between talking with her. She would call when I'd be doing things, and I wouldn't answer. But we talked all the time, and we spent time together. And then COVID hit. We didn't see each other as often at that point, but we did still talk almost daily. Her and her husband were, they always got their flu shots, so they were gung ho about getting the COVID shot, which I don't. That's what they wanted to do, but I personally don't get flu shots each year, and because I do have a good immune system, I decided not to get the COVID shot. And things went great up until February of this year. Actually, it was right around the beginning of the year. She started in on me about making an appointment to go get the shot. It was safe. She was telling me, oh, you need to get it, and she was doing anything and everything she could to make me go get the shot. And I sorry, you're not going to strong arm me into doing something that I feel is not going to be beneficial for me. And she should know that. But she kept doing it anyway, and she's like, if you don't get the shot, then you're going to have to start making other arrangements to get to your pain management in Christiansburg, because if you don't get the shot, we can't be around you. Because my uncle would always take me to Christiansburg for my pain management appointments. And, I just kind of let it slide by the first few times she said something about it. And then February comes around, and I have my appointment, and I'm talking to her. And I was like, is everything still on, for whatever day it was, for our trip to Christiansburg? And she's like, well, have you set up to get your shot, or have you gotten it? I'm like, no. And she's like, well, we told you needed to make other arrangements. And I'm like, okay. So she asked her husband, my uncle, and he's like, yeah, I'll go ahead and take her. So, I got in the vehicle and I wore my mask. I mean, no problem. But I have not heard from them since then. This was the 3rd week of February, I believe. And I have not heard a word from them. And it hurts, because that's 2 of my family members that I've lost contact with because of a fucking shot. And I don't understand that. My dad, who raised her and cared for her, loved her, spoiled her, she has turned her back on his entire family, me and my brother and everybody. She's turned her back on all of us. And after a lot of debate, I really have come to the conclusion that in the future, if she does reach out, I'm not going to allow that kind of toxicity back in my life, because her actions have proved over and over again who she is. And I have fought long and hard to become a better person and to overcome my depression, my anxiety, my panic attacks, and to allow a toxic person back into my life is just not something I'm prepared to do. So there may come a time I change my mind, I don't know. But that's where it stands at this point, because I don't need stress in my life. And I don't need people that are toxic around me. It hurts so bad to lose a family member in death. So to lose contact with two family members that had been very close to me because of something so fucking stupid. It's devastating and it's mind-boggling to me. I don't get it. But that really does make me cherish my remaining family even more. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off for now. If you've watched this, I thank you. I appreciate it, and I love y'all from the bottom of my heart. I hope y'all have a blessed day, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.